This is CBN News Watch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. It is Monday, July 21st. I want to begin this half hour with news coming out of the Middle East, where the ceasefire in Syria is on the brink of collapse, with Druze and Christian civilians being massacred in Sweida. Meanwhile, tensions are rising again in Judea and Samaria as accusations of settler violence spark international concern. Chuck Holton has more right now in our top story.
In Syria's Sweida province, the ceasefire is rapidly deteriorating. Over 1,000 civilians have been killed, mostly Druze, but also Christians. Among the dead, Pastor Khaled Mazer of the Good Shepherd Evangelical Church, murdered along with his entire extended family by pro-regime jihadist militias in Sweida. The atrocity has mobilized outrage across Israel's 150,000-strong Druze community, many of whom are demanding action.
I can't stay still watching my relatives, my people being slaughtered without doing anything. I know I don't have military experience, but at least I would do what the minimum I can do to help my people.
Israel has responded with emergency medical aid, and they've also continued sporadic airstrikes in defense of the beleaguered Druze in Sweida. But Muslim countries like Turkey are condemning Israel's involvement.
I want to say this once again, clearly and plainly. Israel is a lawless, ruleless, unprincipled, spoiled, indulged, and frenzied terrorist state.
In Judea and Samaria, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee visited the Christian village of Taibe this weekend after fires damaged its ancient church and cemetery. Some say the fires were started by Arabs targeting Israeli farmland, but local leaders continue to blame Jewish settlers.
Solidarity with the people who just want to live their lives in peace, to be able to go to their own land, to be able to go to their place of worship.
Settler leaders argue that accusations of violence are often distorted and that Jewish communities are frequently under siege.
The Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria are victimized constantly, bombarded constantly by Arab terrorism and violence. In response, the level of violence perpetrated by Jews, although it is unfortunately not zero, and it should be, and we're working on getting it to zero, it is so small as to be off the charts. In comparison to the number of people in the population, it's something like 0.056.
Israelis living in Judea and Samaria say many of the reported attacks on Palestinians are simply Jews defending themselves from Palestinian-initiated violence.
By undermining the legitimacy of the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, you clear the way for creating a Palestinian state. And you undermine the settlers and connect them in all sorts of ways to the IDF. You essentially tarnish the moral standing of Israel's army.
With the ceasefire in Syria crumbling and competing claims fueling unrest in Judea and Samaria, the Middle East looks to be entering another volatile and unpredictable week. From Jerusalem, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
And our CBN News Middle East correspondent and bureau chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So, Chris, there's a report the White House is upset at Israel's involvement inside Syria. Why does Israel feel it's so important to defend the Druze in Syria?
Well, Ephraim, there's two main reasons. First of all, they do want to help the Druze. They're a very loyal part of the Israeli population. They live mainly in northern Israel, but they're all part of a larger community of maybe 1 million strong there in Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. And Israel wants to help protect these Druze in southern Syria. The other reason, I believe, is that they want to protect southern Syria from the encroachment of these jihadist forces. They're very leery of this new government by al-Jilani, who has al-Qaeda background and roots. And also, there's been a number of videos that have come out of Sweida that some of these jihadist fighters actually have ISIS patches on them. So I think Israel both wants to help this Druze community in any way they can, but also protect Israel from these jihadist elements that seem to be growing stronger there in the Syrian, in many parts, because of the Syrian regime.
Israel has also struck a port in Yemen. What threat do the Houthis still pose?
Well, they still are firing ballistic missiles against Israel, and not as many as they had before, but they still represent a threat to the Israeli population. People are still getting, signals on their app saying a ballistic missile is coming and go to the bomb shelter. They also represent a continued threat to shipping in the Red Sea, and it's had a dramatic impact on global shipping. Much of global shipping does go through the Red Sea, and ever since the Houthis started firing at some of the shipping there, it really has added to the amount of time it takes for some of the shipping to go through, and some shipping companies simply don't go through the Red Sea for maybe more than a year now because of the threat that the Houthis pose. And so Israel is dedicated, committed to make sure that the Houthis don't pose a threat to either the shipping or to the Israeli population.
President Donald Trump implies there may be a hostage deal soon. What could be the holdup?
Well, it seems to be the holdup is still Hamas's insistence that the IDF continued that they have to have a permanent ceasefire, the end of the war, and that they would still have a presence in the Gaza Strip. Those two demands are something that Israel won't accept. I would add, Ephraim, that we continue to hear from President Trump that there's a deal on the way. In fact, apparently, an Israeli channel put out a reel saying all the way back to April, where President Trump says, we're days away, weeks away from a possible deal. It still seems to be elusive. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff apparently is on his way back to the Middle East. But right now, there does seem to be a holdup, mainly because of Hamas, of a potential hostage deal.
Chris, there are reports many Gazans were killed near the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution sites. What is the GHF saying?
Well, the GHF is saying that this tragic incident was away from their sites, distribution sites, and also that it happened during a time when the GHF is not distributing food. We have talked about this, Ephraim, that the GHF is really what it's doing is undermining Hamas's ability to steal the food, sell the food, use it for their own war machine, and control the population. And that's why there's so much interest and actually, according to the GHF, so much misreporting on what's happening near these distribution sites. And actually, they're blaming Hamas for undermining, actually infiltrating some of the people that are coming in to get free food and using this to demonize this whole humanitarian effort that's trying to undermine what Hamas is doing in the Gaza Strip.
All right, Chris Mitchell, our Middle East Bureau Chief, thank you so much for your insights. Looking forward to talking with you in the days ahead. Back here at home, as President Trump marks 6 months of his second term, he faces at least one issue he may never expected to cast a shadow over the White House, and that is the Epstein Files, where calls are growing from both parties for more information to be released. DeHurt is on the story.
Trying to put the Jeffrey Epstein issue behind him, President Trump's Justice Department has asked a federal court to unseal transcripts from the grand jury that investigated Epstein before his 2019 death in jail. But Congress wants more, and Republican Representative Tim Burchett is co-sponsor of the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, which would force the House to vote on a non-binding resolution urging the Epstein files be released.
What exactly do you think the government is withholding here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
You think unsealing the grand jury records is enough for you now?
I think it's a start. I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of anything, all of it.
Commenting on a possible release of grand jury transcripts in the Epstein case, President Trump continued to bash those who want full transparency on the issue. Writing on social media, Trump said, even if the court gave its full and unwavering approval, nothing will be good enough for the troublemakers and radical left lunatics making the request. It will always be more, more, more. And Trump had harsher words for some supporters.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
Was I a little ticked off he said that stuff? Sure I was.
Harvard law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz, who once represented Epstein, told Fox News Sunday there is much more evidence that could and should be released.
What's much, much more important is discovery information, depositions, and other things that came out of the Ghislaine Maxwell case, that came out of other cases that were pending in front of federal judges.
Dershowitz also said former Epstein associate and girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, now in federal prison, needs to testify before Congress.
She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information.
Meanwhile, House Republicans have laid the groundwork for a vote calling for the release of the Epstein Files within 30 days. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, the birth rate in America is at an all-time low. See what's behind this baby bust when we come back. People around the world are having fewer children. Here in the U.S., the White House is trying to do something to resolve that. President Trump has dubbed himself the fertilization president, and he's proposing incentives to encourage a baby boom. Tara Merchant reports.
As America's birth rate drops to historic lows,
happy birthday to you.
Some families are doubling down.
One of our biggest concerns is that we're going to see a cultural mass extinction.
Malcolm and Simone Collins are part of a growing movement encouraging society and the White House to support family life to tackle the problem.
It's not like our society is one in which we really need to force people into having kids. In fact, we think that's a really bad idea. We only want wanted children in this world. But right now, we do many things to actively make it harder to be a parent, even if you really want to be.
CDC data shows the number of babies born in the U.S. hit a 45-year low in 2023, with only a few states above replacement level.
I think that's just a great tragedy because for most of us, kind of nothing lends our lives more meaning and purpose, absent, say, faith, for instance, than the opportunity of kind of being both a spouse and a parent.
Beyond missing out on family life, the overall impact could threaten the country and world's future.
People have had in mind since the 1960s this misguided worry about overpopulation.
Experts warn today's mindset about parenting carries broader consequences, like fewer workers, lower tax revenue, and an aging population with not enough younger people to support them.
If you haven't invested in friendship and family, you're going to be in a bad spot in the last chapter or two of your life.
Prominent voices are sounding the alarm.
The birth rate is very low in almost every country. And unless that changes, civilization will disappear.
The White House is now exploring ways to encourage Americans to have more children, with President Trump dubbing himself the fertilization president.
And we will support baby bonuses for a new baby boom. How does that sound? That sounds pretty. I want a baby boom.
A $5,000 payment to new mothers is one of the ideas under consideration, along with a $1,000 tax-free investment account to each newborn child in the U.S. Others include Fulbright scholarships for married or parenting applicants and federal funding for fertility awareness education.
This movement tends to actually transcend so many different groups. It incorporates your Silicon Valley tech bros. It incorporates many pro-life religious conservatives, but it also ties into a sort of crunchy con liberal or even libertarian who's really interested in these holistic health root cause approaches to fertility and overall vitality.
Simone has even floated awarding a national medal for motherhood for those with 6 or more children.
We need to show that we support and celebrate people who make these sacrifices.
And President Trump is pledging to lower the cost of IVF to make family growth more accessible. So what's behind America's baby bust? For many, it's not a lack of desire, but a lack of support. The cost of living is high, childcare is more expensive, and family dynamics have changed.
We've all heard the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. And We don't live in those villages anymore.
Data also shows women starting families later in life, greater access to contraception, and other choices taking priority.
So please, is the loss of sleep, is the loss of identity, giving up your body, like, is it worth it?
Declining faith may also play a role. Research shows religious Americans are more likely to have children, while the non-religious, a group that's doubled to 29% since 2007, tend to delay or forego parenthood altogether. Not everyone, though, agrees it's the government's role to intervene.
Clearly, they don't know how women's bodies work, and they don't know what it costs.
The desire to become a parent is not universal, even though we may all, most of us, may have the capacity to become biological parents.
Even among baby boom supporters, there's a debate over how to encourage more people to become parents.
We should be also thinking about how do we make the marital bond, the foundation of any effort to kind of address this fertility challenge that now faces us.
It's no secret what moms are demanding. So we chose paid leave, affordable childcare, and improved maternal health outcomes.
For many families, it's about the math.
$1,000. That's how much parents of just one little boy or girl are paying for diapers per year.
By some estimates, it now costs more than $300,000 to raise a child through high school.
Like if the financial is what you're struggling with, here's a way that we can provide a boost and really encourage you on that path.
The most important part when it comes to addressing falling birth rates isn't necessarily to incentivize having kids, and that's not exactly what the administration is looking at. The biggest thing is, how do we take a foot off the neck of parents who want to have kids or more kids?
Whether solutions to reverse the nation's low birth rate is through culture shifts or policy, it's clear many women aren't asking for a push and would prefer a helping hand. In Washington, Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. For decades, Mississippi is ranked as one of the lowest states in overall quality of life, including education, until recent reforms took the state from 49 in 2013 up to 21st in 2022. Charlene Aaron recently sat down with Governor Tate Reeves to learn more about the surprising turnaround.
The dramatic improvement in student literacy rates here has been dubbed the Mississippi Miracle. Many say the educational wins should be highlighted and shared with other states as models they can follow.
I certainly use the term the Mississippi Miracle every chance I get because it catches people off guard.
In our interview, Mississippi's Republican Governor Tate Reeves credited educational wins in his state to years of hard work in a state once ranked at the bottom.
It is the direct result of passing conservative reforms in our legislature in 2012 and 2013, followed up by a very strong implementation by our Department of Education and a lot of hard work by teachers and students and parents all over the state. And what you're seeing now is just the fruits of that labor.
Tate specifically points to getting back to basics.
We went back to teaching reading, utilizing phonics. And that's a method that, again, was not popular for everyone at the time, but it was the right thing to do for our kids.
In 2013, state lawmakers implemented the Literacy-Based Promotion Act, which focused on early literacy and teacher development.
We invested in our teachers. We invested in hiring reading coaches, $15 million a year. We spent on reading coaches at the state level, state employees that went into schools and school districts, helped kids that were struggling to read.
The state also mandated holding back students not meeting certain reading standards by third grade, an unpopular move at the time.
Many folks said, look, you can't do that. If you do that, 50% of our kids are going to be held back, or 60% of our kids are going to be held back. But we had the exact opposite experience. What actually happened is we raised the level of expectations, and Mississippians did what Mississippians do. They rose up and they met those increased expectations.
And surpassed them with the 2024 National Assessment of Educational Progress Report Card, showing Mississippi fourth graders moving to the top in reading and math gains over the last 12 years. The state scored #1 for achieving highest score increases in fourth grade reading and math, number 9 overall in fourth grade reading scores, and 16 in math scores. Mississippi African American fourth graders ranked number 3 among their peers nationally in those areas, while Hispanic fourth graders ranked number 1 in reading and number 2 in math. At a time when 1 in 5 Americans struggle with reading, other states are taking notice. In 2019, Louisiana implemented similar reforms, choosing to focus on phonics and invest in training programs for principals and teachers. Reading coaches have also been put in place. With red states like Mississippi and Louisiana seeing great strides, blue states like California are seeing an education decline since the pandemic, with nearly 60% of third graders not reading at grade level in 2024. Back in Mississippi, Reeves sees charter schools also making a difference.
We believe in school choice. We have public charter schools in various districts around the state now, which has given a lot of kids opportunities.
When asked about the president's plan to close the Department of Education, Reeves doesn't think it will have any negative impact on Mississippi's continuing improvement.
I think what you're going to see as the U.S. Department of Education is slowly reduced in size, that's actually potentially going to free up money long term for states to be able to take those resources and invest them in things that work. You know, I'm going to tell you, there are going to be some states that invest in some woke ideology. We're going to invest in the basics, reading, math, and those kind of things.
Investments the governor hopes will pay off in the lives of students now and in the future.
Back in 2013, our high school graduation rate in Mississippi was 72.5%. Last year, it was 89.9%. So we have between 3,000 and 4,000 kids in Mississippi today that are graduating high school every year that 15 years ago would not have graduated high school. We see this as a huge boom, not only for those individual kids, but it's a huge boom for our economy, and it gives us an opportunity to compete in the future.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Jackson, Mississippi.
Time now for your Monday Motivation. I leave you right now with 2 words. Don't quit. I know you're tired of fighting. I know you're tired of waiting. I know you are simply tired. But let me encourage you as I encourage myself. Don't quit. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Look forward to you joining us right back here next time. Make it a marvelous Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.